Welcome to Letters from Norway, offering an American perspective from Oslo, with your host, Nick Cameron.
Hello, welcome to Letters from Norway. This is Nick Cameron, and I decided to return to podcasting. But first, I'll just give you a brief intro of what we're going over, and then I'll talk about why I'm coming back and some topics I want to discuss and what you can expect in the future. Okay, so first off, we'll talk about some new developments, in the new format, and then I'll talk a little bit about my life in Norway. For some of you who haven't heard my older podcast, which I had to remove, I'll kind of be a little redundant for those who've listened to me before, but for the new people, this should be interesting for you. And then I wanted to also discuss the concept of smart conservatism, and then we'll just wrap this up. This is just my first podcast after a while, and we'll be getting back into this. So what brought me back into podcasting, or why I took a break? As you all knew from the going away video on the going away audio on the last one, I just couldn't make it work with the partnership that I had. There was just too many disagreements how we divide up the work and divide up any potential revenue. Now, we had no revenue, but I just felt like I was getting to do more and more work, and they were wanting more and more potential cuts. So, I just decided to part ways and focus on writing. But what I've come to realize is that, the spoken word is much more stronger than the written one. And we have to, talk in an audio format so we can reach people who are commuting to work or, working out. I know most of the audiences in America, they're working people, over 35. So they're quite busy, have families and everything, and they listen to something in the background while they're doing something. So I would like to reach those of you who are in that situation and don't have time to read 4,000 word stories. That's one of the motivations there. What I wanted to also say is that I'm offering another perspective from the mainstream media. I mean, I'm definitely going to put myself in that category that I'm not happy with the media establishment and how they report the news and how they leave out facts or only report snippets and then out of context. So I want to offer a full perspective in my view, and I'll talk more about myself later as we get there. So about the podcast, I'm going it alone. We have to start from somewhere. My wife is in the background, kind of just giving me some encouragement and some coaching, and she'll probably come into the show in some months later on when she's more comfortable and we see how this is going. Right now she has a directorship role, and she helps me with the script and helps me keep smiling while I'm talking. So yeah, she's really cool, and we'll talk more about her in the future. She's from Ukraine, I'm from America, so that itself is an interesting dynamic, in addition to us having a 19 years age difference. It's fun, and it'll be great for the show. I feel as citizens in a democracy, we have an obligation to uphold the system. A democracy rests on the shoulders of the people, and it's only as strong as the people in the system. So if people start turning apathetic or don't care anymore, I mean, what can you expect? The democracy will fall apart. Now, the good news is that only 30% of the people have to care. That's what won the American Revolution, and that was the active base of the conservative movement that turned this election around. It was roughly 30% core support. And then, you have another 30% that are somewhere in the middle. They're thinking about things, but they really put their own self-interest first versus the country's interest. And then you have another 1/3 that are either globalists or Tories, back in the revolutionary time with the British, people who don't want to help the system. So what we're really here for is to galvanize the core and maybe win over a few people in the middle so that we can hold this country together. And I want to do my part, all the way here from Oslo, Norway. The shows will be 20 to 25 minutes, once per week. We'll discuss current events. I'll talk about my life in Norway. One thing I'd like to do is go on LinkedIn or Facebook and make comments on some of the posts. So we'll probably do a little bit of that. Especially LinkedIn is very liberal and Democrat biased. So seems like if you express your own view on that social media platform, you'll probably never find a job. You have to agree with all the political correct stuff and all this globalism stuff and all of this diversity stuff, which doesn't really help anyone. Diversity doesn't do anything for anyone. It just divides the country and puts lower standards on the groups that need the help the most, and then they're always going to be questioned. But we'll talk more about that later. This is going to be a natural podcast. I'm not going to do any editing. I don't have the skills or the resources to do it right now. So we'll just do it like this until I can get more means to do some proper editing and proper sound engineering. And also, we'll be interviewing other people. During the course of the week, when I'm out in town, I'm always meeting people and having interesting conversations. What are the goals of the podcast? First of all, podcast is quite a big undertaking, and I'm doing all this, as a one-man show with a little bit of help from my wife, and she'll be getting more and more into it. But there's a management aspect, there's a writing aspect, there's a production aspect, there's a marketing aspect, and then there's a sound engineering aspect, which includes recording and sound editing. Each one of those things in its own right is a job. It is almost a full-time job to make a podcast work. It's almost like producing a movie just without the picture aspect, but it does require a lot of research, a lot of content, finding all the content. So now back to the goals. Our biggest goal is to get the word out that there's another point of view, that being conservative is and being patriotic is not racist, narcissistic, or sexist, or misogynist, or whatever other word the liberals are using. And mind you, I used to be a massive liberal, so I know how they used to think and how they think now. And I want to emphasize that there's trade-offs in life. We're always having to make decisions, to get something, that, like, for example, freedom versus security. The more security that we have, we're going to lose some freedom. For example, if you truly want to secure a room, fill it up with concrete from the floor to the ceiling. The room, no one will ever get in that room. It'll be completely secure and nothing will ever get stolen, but you won't be able to use it either. So we always have to balance out how much responsibility do we take for ourselves versus how much do we give back to the state to take care of us. Anytime we defer responsibility to anybody, it can be, it can take away our freedoms. So, okay, what are our other goals? I wanted to emphasize my own philosophy called smart conservatism. Accepting the reality with respect to the need for a government, but trying to keep it minimalist. That we do live in a society. We do need roads. I mean, the libertarians are great people, but they can be a little bit reality challenged. Dealing with the pragmatism. A government is supposed to be like a collective. Like, you get money from your friends and go to Walmart or go to Sam's Club and get a bulk discount. So we have to look for, that's the government's role, like where we all put our money together to get a bulk discount and not have it rule our lives. And that's the way I see smart conservatism. The smart conservatism values would be based on founding principles of our founding fathers. I do believe there's some degree of secularism, but I do acknowledge that America was founded on Protestant and Anglo-Saxon values, going all the way back to the signing of the Magna Carta, the making of the invention of the Gutenberg printing press, and also the Protestant Reformation. We have to have regulations in the society. We have to have some rules, but they should be to the benefit of the family and the benefit of the society, and not to imprison us. And sometimes that's a hard line to follow. Like, I personally believe in soda taxes. I personally believe in sugar taxes, because at the end of the day, it'll be healthier people. And those industries, have overwhelming power, marketing power. So we're not getting the whole story. If there was democratic information where we learn the consequences, we could make better decisions. But we usually only get one side. So I want to talk about, different regulations that, and the goal to, help us, not hurt us. Again, talking about accepting the need for collective good, like roads, defense, standards, so that we have common light outlets and common parts for the car and all this kind of thing. That there's some national standards, like a common time, and also that conservatism. A lot of conservatives are very religious, and they want to institutionalize this into the society. But I always thought religion is stronger if it's chosen by free will versus being legislated. Okay, so I wanted to discuss about myself. I guess I'll talk a little bit about myself. So, those of you who don't know me, I have a background, an engineering background. I studied nuclear engineering at Kansas State University. I got an MBA from the University of Illinois, mostly focusing on marketing and entrepreneurship. I'm roughly around 46 years old, almost 47. I have a lot of life experiences. I was in the Navy, I worked on Wall Street. I even lived in Alabama for a little bit. I've been in Florida for a while, lived up in Delaware, New York. I've been all over the place. So I have a lot of life experience. I even spent 1 year at USC trying to become a filmmaker. I recently got married. I was talking about my wife, my hot wife from Ukraine. So we recently were married. That's been very good. I am a very strong proponent of marriage as a foundation of stability and life. It gives you purpose. And in recent developments, I recently left my job. I'm in the process of starting an IT nearshoring company, and I'd like to bring talent from Ukraine, Romania, and Poland to fill critical skill gaps here in Norway, where there's legitimate needs and there's nobody in the local market who can fill that gap. I like to bring people on full salary and bring them to Norway to become Norwegian. I don't want them going back. And that way you get better people. So I am from the IT sector. I travel a lot for my job. It's fun. Okay, so I guess about my life in Norway. It's both good and bad. I recently took a trip to America, so we'll talk about that in a future episode. There are definitely some things that can definitely say that this is the best country in the world, but there's definitely some downsides. As I said, there are trade-offs. For a sense of security, you do give up some freedoms, although they may be free. No one really expresses themselves, and there's a very strong political correctness culture. It's like being in the Amish community. You can get yourself excommunicated socially very quickly. They'll still feed you, they'll clothe you, they'll help you when there's a need. You can even eat dinner, but no one's really going to talk to you. So it's a bit like being Pennsylvania Dutch, living in Norway. As long as you go along with the program, and you'll be okay. Uh, so, the food is good. I would say. We're going to be talking about that in a future episode. About the food crisis in America. In Norway, the food is nutritious. It's healthy. It's relatively affordable. I think so, for the quality that you get. There's a truth that you read about, and there's a reality you live in, and you can only understand that reality by living here. So we'll talk a lot about that in future episodes. I'll be even interviewing people to give different perspectives. And so the next episodes, I guess we'll be talking about the Oslo Freedom Forum. I've been going to some of the events and listening to the speeches. I've even gotten myself on the stage asking questions, pretty critical and tough questions, challenging the liberals. They talk about a freedom forum, and then when you tell them you're a Trump supporter, they they don't want to listen to you anymore. But they're claiming to be liberal and Democrat. They're supposed to listen to all points of view, and then they are shocked to find out that I'm not from a trailer park. I'm not white. I'm highly educated. I'm well traveled. I live in Norway, and so it's just fun to see their reactions. You know? So that's been fun, the Oslo Freedom Forum. And then, when I took a trip to America, I go back home about every 2 years. So it's a very long time. I'm not back there regularly. So I do all of a sudden feel like a foreigner in my own country sometimes. But there are some things you pick up right away and you remember right away, just the friendliness, the courtesy, the hellos when people are passing. But one of the things that really, and we'll be discussing in more detail, it's the food. There's definitely a food crisis in America, and it's not a shortage of food; it's a quality of food. Something bigger needs to be done because this is when you come from the outside looking in. As an American who's lived abroad, you come home, you've all of a sudden realized that there's a lot of lost opportunity and lost potential because people are not eating right. It seems like America is the greatest country in the world, but it's only exercising 1/3 of its potential. I mean, so just think of what we could be. Just think of what we could be if we were healthy and we were running on our full potential. How much stronger and greater a country we could be. Now, to wrap up this podcast, this episode is going to be shorter than the 20-25 minutes, and we're not fully decided on the length. We'll let the audience, depending on your feedback, I'll be very much, hoping for some emails and some letters, and we'll even take, Google Hangouts and do some live recordings where people can participate and we can have a conversation or a dialogue. And all of those, those of you who are aspiring to move to a socialist country, and have some questions, you can ask me. So to wrap this up, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to us on iTunes. I'll be dropping podcasts at least once a week, if not more, as we get our mojo going and get our show formula down and get our rhythm. Maybe we'll be doing more often. I hope that you can all spread the word. This is literally a mom and pop operation. It's just my wife and I'd like you to check out the site, the lettersfromnorway.com. I have over 100 articles covering life, economics, politics, travel. I'd like to have you pay special attention to the economy section. I've tabulated many economic indicators and statistics going back more than 10 years to give you a perspective on how Norway is changing in light of the decline of the oil prices. You can see definite trends in housing, employment, in population and GDP per capita. There's definite trends in retail consumption. So I'm tracking this every month and then putting out those statistics. Places like Oslo Economics and other places like Gartner would charge you a ton of money for this, and I'm just posting this for free. Just mining the data sites every month, the government data sites. And I even have abbreviated data for the rest of the Nordics, just to give you perspective. We are featured on Zero Hedge, Wolf Street, and Of Two Minds by Charles Hugh Smith, three major blogs, three very highly reputed blogs. We have written articles. I've been talking to the producers of those blogs, and we're hoping to get onto more blogs and forums. We'd really like to coordinate with Rebel Media in Canada. We'd really like to get to know the Breitbart people a little bit better, and we'd like to get to know other up-and-coming bloggers. And I hope that we can have some shows and have some dialogue and discuss smart conservatism. We're not radical zealots, like the Fox News people. We're just people who, believe in personal responsibility, and again, believe government is like for a collective good to get a good deal. Government is supposed to be like we collect a bunch of money, go to Sam's Club, and get a good deal on potato chips, buying one of those crates, and then getting it per unit cheaper. We'd like to discuss, have more guests discussing this topic. We're on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest. We're on, I think we're on all of them. I don't even know what they all are. Definitely like us on whatever one of those platforms you like. Now, I've looked at the statistics, using Google Analytics and talked to some of the viewers. Most of this audience, the above 35, mostly in America and UK and Norway, are pretty anti-social media. And I don't blame you. So we don't depend on it. But it does, if you are on social media, it would be helpful if you can give us a like or some acknowledgement so we can, start getting a little bit of sponsorship going. And one thing I promise is I will not be influenced by sponsors. I'll gladly take the money, but they have to let me have an unscripted, unpolitically correct show that challenges all these long-held beliefs. Controversy is at the heart of democracy, and we want to be as controversial, which really means challenging the norm, as possible. And with that being said, I'll wrap this up, and we'd like to thank everybody this May 21st, 2017 for joining the show. And goodbye.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe on iTunes and follow us on social media.